Hi everyone, and welcome to episode number 6 of my Redout Advanced Strategy Guide series. In this video, I will be taking a look at my former world record lap on the Khamsim track of the Cairo location. I have titled this video Small Margins because I believe when we use the magnetic stabilizer power-up on tracks that suit its meta, we have very small margins of error when it comes to our steering and our direction. Let's take a look at the lap and I'll break down the footage. So now that we've watched this lap back, the first thing that may stand out to you relative to videos that I've posted in the past is that there is a dramatic aesthetic difference when using the magnetic stabilizer power-up versus the faster passives. For those unaware, the magnetic stabilizer allows the ship a tremendous amount of grip against the floor, and it also allows us to narrow our turning radius significantly, so we can take tighter turns at the expense of speed and inertia. The way this plays out in a track like Khamsim is that we don't have the flexibility to use speed to our advantage because of the narrowness of the track and the frequency of turns. So what we do is we apply the magnetic stabilizer to allow us to hug basically every corner and create those small margins of victory or error. Now, if we start this track, the most important thing I can stress is to take this turn in a way that provides a good start. I'm going to cover this turn specifically at the end of the lap, but I want to just point out the fact that I got off to a very slow start off of that wall bounce. We're at 435 now. By the time I apply my micro boosts before my start, I'm just about the mid 800s in speed. In better laps, I would be at around 900 before I hit my turbo boost coming up to start the lap. Now, why is this so important? Well, like I mentioned, this is a former world record, and it is only behind the current world record by 1 frame in a 60 frames per second game, which is 0.01667 approximately. So every little bit of additional speed I can carry into the beginning of the lap will play a role in getting a better time. Regardless, now that we've built up the speed, the next thing I want to do is carry that speed through a turbo boost into this first chicane. So notice right here, we have a little bit of a right and then a little bit of a left. I cut it completely straight because I want to carry velocity into this first turn. Once again, I want you to notice when I take turns with MS, how closely I hug every corner. So look here on the right. Now watch as I carry speed, watch how closely I hug here. This takes a lot of practice because it's very finicky when it comes to steering. And depending on the input device that you are using, that may play a role in your timing of creating that turn as well. I'm going to back this up. Watch it one more time. Watch how I utilize the speed for my turbo to just slightly hug these two right-handers into our next section. Now, once I get to here, I have it downward sloping straightaway. And this is a good opportunity to provide a little bit of boost. So look at my meter right here. As I'm coming across, I build up about 1/4 of a tank. I can drain it right here because the next, I would say, 20 seconds of the track are going to be relatively free of areas that I can go fast. So let me utilize that time to build up my boost gauge again. Now I come down straight, You could probably take a guess what I'm going to want you to do here. Let's hug really closely to the right. So see that? When you practice this track, you will most likely scrape walls. That is okay. Now, if you're racing, I would play a little bit more conservatively. Try to stay a little bit more in the middle of the track, and let's hope that other pilots make errors. But in time trials, we need to hug these turns closely. Now, as we approach this, similar kind of turn, but we're preempting it with a jump. So what I recommend, and you see me do here, I slightly bow to the left. So see, I'm a little bit off now of the track. If I jump straight, I'd be kind of where my mouse is right here. And that allows me to take less of an angle as I cut through that second part of the turn. Now, once I do that, I have a little bit of a straightaway, but I'm not boosting here because look at my gauge. I have an upcoming turbo boost in about 10 seconds and I need a full turbo for it. So I am not going to boost, but what I will do is apply a little bit of a counter strafe. Counter strafing does work with MS. It requires a little bit of a different approach, and I'll talk about that in one of my other videos coming up. But you can see there's a slight inclination to create that turn. Now this is probably the most difficult corner in the track because it's very long. So you can't just simply hug and escape. You have to hold a certain kind of steering angle to get around it smoothly. So what I like to do is make sure I am more towards the right side of the track. So if you see the line here that's kind of cutting the middle, I'm a little bit to the right, and that allows me to, if you see my mouse, slope inwards and cut pretty close. I have done this a lot better. I am sure that with a better cut, I could get into the 24.600 range in terms of lap time. But you see how closely I hug. Let's play that one more time at real speed. So we create the angle, we get a little bit to the right, and we hug the corner. Now, once we escape here, it looks like we have another right-hander moving into left-hander, and if you see my mouse, our track is going to then kind of follow along to this mountain here. But what I have found is you can turbo in this spot, and as long as you don't steer too much and you see a little bit of daylight right here, you can turbo right through it with minimal steering. Now, if I did not take this turn tight enough and I was more to the right, I would not see this gap. And if you don't see the gap, you will have to steer significantly to get back to the right for the end of the track. So watch this transition here. A little bit of a steer, but not much. And look how even as I come around here, I'm holding a straight angle. So I'm gonna play that one more time. So I come around this turn, I apply the turbo, and minimal steering all the way up until that left turn. Here's the make or break section of this entire track. And it's a bit frustrating because it happens at the very end. So if you mess this up, you not only ruined your current lap, but you now have to wait an additional lap to get back on your time trial pattern. This is very much a trial and error turn. The best thing I can say is get far to the right, because the further we get to the right, the more we can cut the angle and not have to turn as sharply. Now at the speed we are going at here, based on the fact that we just hit a turbo, it's very hard to make this turn without wall bouncing or braking. If you're in a race, you might not have turbo boosted back then if you messed up your pattern. So then you might be able to try that. But for right here, what I do is I try to cut. Now if you watch this frame by frame, I took a very sharp turn with MS and still did not account for this corner. So this is one more spot where I use the brake. Just like we talked about in Roaring Waters, there are a very select few spots where the brake is advantageous to swivel the vehicle. This is one of them. So right there. This happens to be a very good bounce. So watch this in real speed. Watch how I sweep the corner. I apply just a little brake, and then look how I'm positioned. Right towards the finish line. Now I don't have much boost left by this point, but it doesn't really matter based on the fact that my timing is so good in terms of coming off the turn. Now, if you remember me talking about before when I started the lap, how poor of a start I got. My speed was at 439, I believe. Now I'm at 639. Yes, I did hit a turbo boost this time where I didn't do that before the beginning of the lap. But at the same token, you can see where speed can be gained. And if you can start the lap faster, you will finish the lap faster and potentially get your own world record. So I'm going to play this one more time in real speed, just kind of point out some of the areas once again that I feel like can be changed. Number one is going to be getting a good start. So taking this better so I don't slow down so much once I push through with the turbo. These are pretty good. Really nice there. Just hugging the corners. As minimal steering as you can give me coming into these turns. Hug the corners closely. Here's another spot we can improve. We can get closer to the left with a very precise turn. That allows us to boost right there and not steer as much. And finally, make sure you get a good wall bounce coming out, across the finish line, and enjoy your record. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today. I look forward to bringing you an episode next week and hope that you will like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Thank you.